Right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us. This is the last in our series of AI and cybersecurity. And I would like to thank Tourism Nova Scotia for supporting our series of tech webinars. Today's topic is on the weakest link, cybersecurity for humans. My name is Lynn McDonough Hughes with the TIANS and the Tourism Human Resource Council. And letting a few people in. Okay. And before we get started, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we live and work on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. These lands are governed by the treaties of peace and friendship first signed in 1726. Joining us today is Thomas Rizzuto. Thomas is a cybersecurity specialist with Online Computers, which has been a Nova Scotia-based IT company for over 36 years. And Thomas and his crew work with a lot of tourism and hospitality companies. So we're delighted to have him joining us again this week for the last of our series. So I'm going to turn everything over to Thomas. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lynn. Hi, everyone. Like Lynn said, my name is Thomas. I'm sure there's a few familiar faces in here that have seen me before. Today, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity for humans. With that, let's get started. Cybersecurity for humans, kind of a double entendre there. You might think cybersecurity for humans, does that mean cybersecurity at a really fundamental level or cybersecurity focused on the human itself, the human element? And just for clarification, it's a little bit of both. We're going to be talking about things at kind of a very primitive level, but the overall focus is on the human element, the people within your organization. Organizations are people-driven. Technology is great, but it is an assistance to you. You are the ones that deliver your service, your product. So a lot of attention now with cybersecurity is of course, there's technical focus, but it is targeting humans. We want to make sure that people are aware of what they can do and how they can contribute to a more secure business environment. And it is also applicable in personal life. A lot of people hear cybersecurity and their eyes kind of glaze over, but there's a lot of good tips and tricks that you might be able to use in your personal life, just keeping your own personal devices and accounts safe. So cybersecurity is ever evolving. What I tell you today may not be applicable tomorrow. It may not be applicable in a year. Just keep that in mind that even if you become compliant with all the cybersecurity policies and tactics right now, that you will need to change over time. You will need to be willing to invest time over time to make sure that you are protected in a world where AI is now present everywhere. And AI is really enhancing the kinds of attacks that we see against technology, but also humans. With that, I want to say that you are the perfect target. Small business, small, medium business used to never be considered the prime target. Back probably 15 years ago, large businesses and enterprises were considered the prime target because they had the most valuable things. They had the greatest resources, and a lot of effort was dedicated in that direction towards those larger companies. But as time has gone on, it has become so much more prevalent to target the small businesses because they don't have the resources, they don't have the expertise, they don't have the on-staff cybersecurity specialists to help dedicate and alleviate the pressure from all these cyber threats. So don't fall into the fallacy of we're too small, hackers don't care about us. It's actually quite the opposite. You are exactly who they are looking for. The people that just haven't had the time, the chance, the opportunity to review their cybersecurity. So don't put it off thinking that you're safe. So why are humans the weakest link? I'll preface this by saying technology has plenty of weaknesses. There are lots of faults, there are lots of vulnerabilities, there are so many things wrong with technology. That aside, humans, like I said earlier, are the core part of your business. They drive your business. They are public facing, so they're in constant communication with the public. They are interfacing with guests, with potential guests. And every person on your staff, including yourself, has different levels of technical knowledge, aptitude, willingness to learn. So combine that with the fact that we're human, we're driven by emotion, and we're busy. Humans are so easy to target now that we have to focus our attention on them and how to better protect them as individuals, and by that mean also protecting the business. So I want to start off by going through some common attacks. These are ways that humans are exploited, that your business could be targeted with. And this is just to get you thinking and just to get you considering the possibilities of what might occur. If you don't know what to look for, then you'll never know if it has happened. So we'll start off with phishing. Phishing, hopefully everyone has heard this term by now. If not, phishing is essentially an email that you will receive, and it is crafted to look like an email that it is not. So an example would be you get an email from Nova Scotia Power saying your bill is 2 months overdue, and they're begging you to click the link, log in, and make payment. It turns out that that was a fake email. It was malicious, and you were phished. Phishing comes in all sorts of variations and all sorts of purposes. One of them being they want to get access to your account, to your email. Email has become so central to everything that we do that getting access to your email is very powerful. It is not only a representation and a face of your brand, but it is a pivot point for access to almost everything else that you interact with. Every platform and service that you sign up for, you do so using an email. You confirm your account. And if you need to reset your password, it is through email frequently. The other ulterior motive would be financial gain. We often see emails saying, hi, it's the CEO, please transfer XYZ to this wire account. Very broad example, but just one to keep in mind. So 10 years ago, these were very, very easy to spot because the language in them was frequently inconsistent or wrong or just grammatically incorrect. The logos were off. They were very easy to spot, and people still fell for them. Modern day, they have become so hard to distinguish from legitimate emails. They've developed templates, reusable emails that are vetted by an English speaker, and they're very, very convincing. So we're at the point now where you have to, every time you're going to click a link, pause for a moment and consider, is this a legitimate email? Look for the signals of what a non-legitimate email might be. One of the things is invoking a sense of urgency. All these emails want to get you to do something now. They want to strike that fear into you that if you don't pay these 5 outstanding tickets now, then your XYZ service will be cut off. So next time you get a urgent request for something, just step back for a moment and consider, would the person that this email is coming from, or the company that it's coming from, really send me an email like this? Would Nova Scotia Power email me the day of my power being cut off and say, we're cutting you off today? No, they do 30-day notices and they put something on your door. So just keep that in mind before you act on these urgent things. They want to get you to act without taking that moment to pause and consider whether this is legitimate. A couple of variations on phishing. There's spear phishing. Spear phishing is phishing that is targeted specifically to you. So they've done research on your company or you personally, and they've crafted these emails uh, to make use of information that is specific to you. One example would be, uh, let's say your colleague was out of office and they had an out of office email coming back. That can let someone know that that person is unavailable and they can play into that. They could then send an email to you saying, hey, I know I'm out of office, but could you transfer money from here to there? Just to add to the legitimacy of their request. So it's phishing that isn't just broadly sent to hundreds of thousands of people. It's phishing that is more targeted towards you or a specific situation around you and your company. Smishing, so that's SMS phishing, so text message phishing. It's become much more popular now, and uh, an example would be you get a text message from Nova Scotia Power, from your bank, from Indeed, all with these links in them asking you to go here and enter your SIN number, your credit card, any sort of valuable information. Phishing, phishing is voice phishing, which is becoming very prevalent and very accurate now. Uh, Previously, voice phishing was hard because it was very easy to distinguish a robot from a person over the phone. But as AI has progressed, it's possible to clone someone's voice with very little effort and then get them to say the things that you ask them to. So, for example, if someone were to go to YouTube after this recording and take that recording and analyze my voice, they could then pretend to be me over a phone call. So just one other thing to keep in mind. Business email compromise, frequently referred to as BEC. This is similar to phishing, but it is more targeted towards impersonating a specific person. So they will send an email from a high-ranking person in a company or someone who has access to specific assets or resources. One example would be someone would pretend that they are your legitimate vendor. And they would say, we're changing our payment system. We're changing how you wire us money. Please instead send it here. If you took that at face value, well, you've just lost a lot of money when you go to pay your next invoice. So always make sure that any changes like that, you're validating, that you're not just taking the word of the email, that you have policies or procedures in place to validate these things through a separate channel. There are technical tools to prevent impersonation. By that, I mean that with impersonation of emails, there are typically two categories. One being an email could be sent from your email address, meaning that in the from part, it could say your actual email address. The second type would be that they use a similar looking email address. So they could replace an O with a 0 or things, an I with an L, things like that, that help just at a quick glance, you wouldn't question it. So technical tools can help prevent the first kind, whereby your actual email address is in the email. But because the second kind exists, we still need human intelligence. We still need the thought process of, does this make sense? Yes, no. Should I validate it outside of this email? Social engineering. So this is kind of a huge wide spectrum, but it's basically the idea of people manipulation. And it falls back into business email compromise that we discussed, where you're impersonating people or you're doing things to make gain by playing off of the social aspect of people. You might get a phone call pretending that it's an IT person looking to fix your issue, or maybe it's someone pretending to be the oven maintenance company and they want your alarm code to come in after hours and fix the oven. Another example here is dropped USB drives. This is kind of a famous one, is if you take enough USB drives and you throw them about, eventually someone's going to pick it up and plug it in. So if there's something malicious on there, how do you know that your staff aren't plugging those into the office computer? So social engineering, just the idea of playing off of people's social aspect and using it for their gain. Ransomware, I hope everyone has heard of this. If not, we call it the worst kind of virus. It's essentially a piece of malware, a virus, that once it's on your computer, it will take all of your data, all of your files, and it will hold them hostage. It will go through a process of encryption so that the files just cannot be read. You can't look at them. You can't do anything with them. And it will hold them hostage until you make a payment. This is a huge, huge problem, and it's a huge industry. It is very profitable. Individuals, organizations out there are making a living off of this. They are targeting businesses with fines or with fees sized to their revenue, so that if you were to be held by ransomware and you're a Fortune 500 company, you're going to be paying hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you're a smaller company, they still want to make something off you, so they will size it down enough so that it hurts. It really hurts, but it's possible. So this industry has evolved over the years, and it is still a huge problem, and it is putting companies out of business. A lot of companies either can't pay the ransom or they can't recover from it otherwise, and it puts them out of business. They just can't continue. Credential stuffing. The idea around this is that so many people for so long have reused passwords. I think everyone is a little bit guilty of it at one point or another. I'm sure intentionally or not, you've probably reused a password or a slight variation with a 1 at the end or a 2 at the end. If you're using that same password everywhere, when one website is compromised and they get your password from there, they will then take that and run to every other site that they could imagine you would use, whether that's Facebook, email, your Google account, banking, all the important accounts, anything that they can then use for gain, they will try that password in. Out on the dark web, on the dark net, there are databases of millions and millions of passwords, and people can go purchase these and then attempt those passwords on other sites. So that's essentially what credential stuffing is. So the idea is you never want to reuse a password. And that can sound daunting. You already have too many passwords to deal with. How could I have a separate password for every single website? And we'll approach that later on. QR code hijacking. This one is relatively new in the past couple of years just because of how prevalent QR codes have become. You'll see a QR code almost everywhere, whether it's asking you for a review or checking a restaurant's menu. And people have no hesitation to pull out their phone and scan these QR codes. And people have discovered that that is a fantastic way to get people to go somewhere else. So this is usually done in person. Someone will come up and they will take a sticker and it has a different QR code on it, and they will just paste it right over top of yours. So next time someone goes to scan it and input credit card information, suddenly you're no longer getting that credit card information. This very dishonest person is, and you have a very upset guest now. So just quick and easy, go check your QR codes if you have any. Just see if there's something on top of it, if you can peel something off. Everything that we've discussed so far is being enhanced by AI because AI is here and it is progressed rapidly, it is being used for good in many situations, but it is also being used for nefarious purposes. Everything that we have discussed, AI is taking and it is turning it up to 10. It is it is making surviving these attacks much harder for small business owners. Um, I think I'm not sure if everyone has explored AI, but if you can imagine the things that it's done for you and then taken and put in a malicious context, in a bad situation, um, it's a very, very capable tool. With that tool, it also lets these attackers do very in-depth analysis on you, on your company, on individuals. If I had an interest in doing harm to a local company, I could go in with an AI and say, tell me everything about this company. Tell me who is their email hosted through, who's their website, all this info. I could say, find me the owner's email address. Some AI tools out there will refuse to do it, but there are malicious ones out there that will happily do it. And it makes perpetrating these attacks so much easier. So it's imperative that you are prepared and you're on the defensive. Any questions at this point? And just curious, has anyone experienced any of what we've discussed, whether that's phishing, ransomware? Have you heard about it anecdotally? Have you had a friend, family?
We've experienced it at the office,
Yeah,
which I think, you know, we get emails. And I can attest to the fact that they have certainly advanced in the way they are written. And we've warned everyone in the office, so we were aware to be careful of them, but you can, the way they're written now, is certainly scary in terms of you do have to be careful because they certainly are very real sounding. And in terms of catching if someone's on vacation, we have had that happen too. We've had, you know, our chair write, you know, when our president is on vacation and looking to have something done that is, you know, if somebody was brand new and didn't know any better and was in a position where they could facilitate something that perhaps should not be done, it could be a very scary situation.
absolutely. Yep. Yeah, it's previously 5 years ago, it would have been not as serious to look at the grand scale of this and go, um, we're protected. But now with AI, it's almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it has become so difficult for the average person to understand the complexity and the nuance that is needed for adequate protection. So let's move into what can you do? What are the things that you are able to do here and now and that can give you a leg up, that can give you that extra little bit needed to make sure that you're not the next victim or that your company doesn't shutter because of someone's small innocent mistake. This is likely the most or single most important tool to protect all of your accounts. Multi-factor authentication is when you log in, you put your username or email, your password, and then you're asked for essentially another password. Frequently, that's a 6-digit code that's generated on your phone, or you get a text message. It is a way to verify that it is you in that moment logging in. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. And you can still be tricked into giving up that information. There are many recent initiatives to try and alleviate that so that you as a user can't give away your login or your account. They're not very prevalent in all platforms yet necessarily, and by that I'm talking about passkeys if you've ever heard of them. But so with multi-factor authentication, if you can add it to an account, do it. It is the smallest, easiest way to enhance your security. A lot of accounts, a lot of software out there won't even let you finish signing up without enabling two-factor authentication. For example, banks. Every bank now, you have to use two-factor authentication. You'll either get a text message or you have to use their app to approve the sign-in. If banks are taking it that seriously, why aren't you? Why isn't your email protected, right? We highly encourage people to use methods other than text message and email for two-factor authentication, primarily because these are relatively easy to compromise. Email, like we discussed earlier, your password can be phished. So if someone can get into your email and then get the two-factor code for your bank, that's not great. So other methods that we prefer would be app notifications, whereby when you log into a service, a pop-up on your phone comes up and says, is this genuinely you trying to log in? One of the other preferred methods would be generated codes. So on your device, your phone, tablet, it'll generate a 6-digit code that changes every 30 seconds. That's another great way to do it. Or security keys. If you don't like entering those codes, you can typically get, it looks like a little USB drive, and you plug it into your computer, and you'll typically have to tap a little button on it to say that, yes, you are physically at the computer. But it's another step, another verification to ensure that it is you logging in and accessing your account, your bank, anything sensitive. Beyond two-factor authentication, one of the most valuable and powerful things that you can do to enhance your security is training. Training yourself, training your staff, becoming digitally literate, as we say. So I know that technology is new and ever-changing, and it's a lot to take in. Even myself, I find that things change so frequently, and it's hard to keep up. But there is kind of a baseline of understanding technology and the critical parts that help keep you safe. There are lots of resources out there. There are some that are just very basic fundamental digital literacy. Don't share your password, don't share your PINs, things like that. And then they can progress all the way up to kind of more in-depth, advanced topics. So one that we urge all customers of ours, but in general, anybody to engage with is called security awareness training. These are small little trainings sent out to your staff regularly. In our case, we send them out twice a month. They're maybe 15 minutes long, and they're little tidbits of information to try and get your staff in the mindset of security first. Of when you click that link, are there repercussions? As an example, there were lots of people that didn't understand or know about QR codes and the possibility that people might just come along and put another QR code over top. Through our training program, many people became aware of this, and it's kind of a light bulb moment where you go, wow, I never really considered this. It's just about getting you in the mindset of how you might become vulnerable. So security awareness training, that's a great keyword if you want to Google that to find a program that might fit you. The next thing that we talk about here is phishing simulation. So phishing is terrible and we hate it, but we also have to understand that it is real, and you are almost guaranteed to receive a phishing email. So what can we do to better protect ourselves, our company, our coworkers? Is we can simulate phishing. We can pretend to phish. So twice monthly, we send out emails, and I say we, but there are many programs available to do this. I'm not going to recommend one over the other, but the idea being that we send out fake emails asking you to do something that you shouldn't otherwise do. So they're all across the spectrum. Some might be your account password is expiring, click here to sign in. Some might be your bank has this urgent statement that you need to sign, click here. And the idea of this is to get people familiar with what these emails look like and to get them on the lookout for these things. Part of that program is getting some data back. So if someone clicks on the malicious link in our test email, we are made aware and we can help educate that person towards making sure they understand the signs of what a bad email looks like. It's not about blaming anyone. It's not about saying that you failed the test. It's about education. That's all we want to do, is make sure that people are aware and understanding of what risks they might face just out in the world, but in your inbox. Another thing to consider is digital literacy as part of your hiring criteria. We're in an age now where technology is almost not optional anymore. In some cases, I'm sure it is, but in a lot of industries and a lot of business, technology is kind of central and core to the business. So it's worth looking beyond the traditional skill set that you might be hiring for and evaluate their digital literacy as well. If you're looking to hire an operations manager and they have a fantastic track record and they have all the credentials and qualifications, but they really have no sense of, what is a phishing email, or how clicking a link could impact your company. If that, fantastic operations manager clicks a link on their first day and takes down your entire company, was it really a good hire? It's worth considering during that process. Backups. I've spoken on this before in our previous sessions, but I will bring this through again. Backups are so incredibly important for many reasons. In situations where you're hit by ransomware or other malware or viruses, or just in the case that you made a mistake, you deleted a file you shouldn't have. Backups are so imperative to the operation of your business that we say if it isn't backed up, it doesn't exist. Your data needs to exist in a backup form. We talk about the 3-2-1 rule. That's what we use in the industry to describe how your backups need to be set up in a way so that you are protected. So 3 being, you should have 3 copies of your data. The first copy being the data that you interact with day to day. So just your regular data. The other 2 copies should be backups. So 1 live data and then 2 backups. The 2 in this rule is for 2 different kinds of backups. So if you have a backup on a hard drive, you should also have it on a different kind of media, meaning either up in the cloud or maybe a CD drive or any other different kind of media, so that in case that one fails, you have this alternate, basically a backup of a backup. And the 1 in this rule being that 1 copy of that data should exist off-site. So if you're an office-based operation, you should have at least 1 copy on-site and 1 copy off-site, so that if you experience a catastrophic loss at your office, sure, you've lost all your computers, your desks, everything, but you have a copy of your data that you can continue operations with. On top of this, we also emphasize the need to test your backups. Just because you do a backup doesn't mean that it will work when you need it to. So I'm not saying you have to do this every single day, but at least on a scheduled basis, take the time to go through and make sure that should the worst case happen, you have the possibility to continue from your backups. On top of this, many people are under the impression that all of their data is backed up. And it turns out that that is almost always incorrect. There's some piece of data lingering out there that you haven't thought of, you haven't had the ability to capture. One example for us is this was a couple of years ago, we were doing a review of our accounting data. We use QuickBooks Online, and we had been paying for a backup of our QuickBooks data. In the unlikely case that the QuickBooks Online cloud went down, we wanted to have a copy of our data. In looking through that, we found that most of our data was there, but we make heavy use of recurring transactions within QuickBooks. And there's just a little caveat in the QuickBooks backup that says recurring transactions will not be backed up. Until we reviewed that data, we had no idea. So it's important to look at all aspects of where your data is stored, whether that's in Excel, in your files, your online accounting system. If you use another platform, another software platform, just because it's in that platform doesn't mean it's backed up. So ask that software company, can I get my data somehow? How do I get my hands on my own data? Cyber insurance, we're asking more and more people if they have it, because many people are under the impression that they do, but they don't verify. Errors and omissions frequently doesn't include cyber incidents. It doesn't include cyber coverage. It's either an add-on or an additional policy, and most people aren't aware of that. It's something that is becoming very popular, and for good reason. If you experience a cyber incident, they're very expensive. You lose loss of revenue from just being down, but also the effort put into recovering your business, your operations from whatever event happened. So just a good thing to go check out. Maybe ask your insurance next time it comes up for review if cyber's on there. If not, what are the options for an add-on? When you do this, they will typically send you a nice hefty multi-page document asking you to basically state or attest to how your company is in kind of a bird's eye view of your technology. They want to see basically what your risk is. So just keep that in mind that you will have to do some legwork to get cyber coverage. And if you're not quite in a good position yet, if you're out of line with a couple mandatory items, that you may not get coverage, and your premiums may also just be out of this world. So we're seeing, as technology has advanced, as AI has come forth, and as there have been more frequent cyber incidents, so ransomware, just financial loss, a lot of claims get denied because what they stated on their questionnaire or their policy wasn't accurate, and then the insurance company comes back and just denies their claim. So it's important that you fill out that that questionnaire truthfully, but also that you consider whether you have enough protection, whether the items on there are enough to keep you protected. One thing we spoke about earlier was credential stuffing, where that thing we're all guilty of, where we use that same password over and over again. And in doing that, we're opening ourselves up to that password being used on other sites or being used to log into other sites where we have reused it. One solution to that is a password manager. And I highly encourage, if you haven't used one or you don't know what it is, to go out and explore it. They're extremely cheap. They're a couple dollars a month. The idea being that a password manager is essentially a vault where you store all of your passwords. And importantly, you no longer have to manage your passwords. You don't have to remember these dozens and hundreds of passwords for all of these sites. Instead, this book of passwords, every time you go to sign up for a site, it sees that and it will say, hey, I see you're trying to make a new account. Let me help you, and I'll generate a random password. You don't have to know it, and it will look like gibberish. But that's very important because that means that password is unique to that service that you're signing up for. So if that service ever becomes compromised or your password from it gets out somehow, that that doesn't give all of your keys to the kingdom to someone else. Uh, so when you do that, uh, you're you're really elevating your security from a very kind of minimal um, baseline, I would say, all the way up to a it's a really powerful thing to do. And most importantly, your password vault typically is protected by one password, meaning by remembering one singular password for this password manager, you get access to your vault, which has these hundreds of passwords. So the burden of remembering all these dozens of passwords is now alleviated, and for that, you are so much more secure. Also, a little bonus on top of that is that when you go to log into all of these sites, it will typically pop up and say, I see you're trying to log into Facebook. Click here to automatically fill your passwords. So there's even less typing now. It's all just automatic. So some people see this as a weak spot, meaning that all of your passwords are now in this one spot. So if someone gets access to that one spot, they have access to everything. But the counter to that is you're encouraged, if not required, to use a fairly complex password for this vault, meaning it is the one password that you have to remember, so make it good. And by doing that, you're ensuring that your vault remains secure. Typically, on top of that, you require additional things like two-factor authentication because, again, this is, Fort Knox. This is where all of your sensitive info is stored. So Password Manager, very powerful tool, and I highly consider looking into one. If you already use one, just make sure that you are making benefit from it. A lot of people use a password manager, but they continue to sign up with their same password. At that point, just throw away the password manager because you're making no benefit from it, and you're still in the same vulnerable position as you were before. Software and device updates, new attacks, new vulnerabilities, new ways for you to be compromised, for exploits to be found are discovered hourly. They are so common now. AI has made these vulnerabilities, these exploits so prevalent, and we're seeing new serious problems with software, with devices, and they're coming out so frequently. So if you're still running an old computer that you haven't updated, you're doing yourself a large disservice. It's important that you keep your devices up to date and that you do it consistently. As an example, the other day, a vulnerability came out that is a 10 out of 10, meaning that it is the most severe, it has the most possible impact if it were to be used. If you weren't to update your devices, that means that you are possibly vulnerable to it, and you're really not doing yourself any favors by not updating. Typically, updating is included in the devices in your software. There's usually a box that says update automatically. So just check for it. See if it's there, see if it's an option. But if it's not, make sure you're doing it regularly and make sure that you're verifying that these things are done. Network segmentation, we see this fall apart a lot in hospitality and small restaurants and small hotels. The idea being that your networks should be separate. And by networks, I mean your guest Wi-Fi and where your corporate data lives. So if you have POS terminals, if you have your front desk terminals, if you have anything that has company data on it, it should live on a completely separate network from where your guests will interface. Uh, this is becoming, or it has been, a requirement for PCI DSS. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is, but it's basically a standard for credit cards and ensuring that you are compliant with how you store and handle credit card data. So it's a requirement there, but it is also another requirement for insurance. Just imagine that a guest walks onto your property and they connect to your Wi-Fi, but it turns out their device isn't in a healthy state. They haven't been practicing good cybersecurity policies or hygiene, and suddenly your entire network, your business, all of your data, all of your customers' data that you've gathered is now at risk because of that. So just keep that in mind. Policies and procedures. So this isn't a technical control necessarily. This isn't a technical thing or a piece of software to do or a thing to do. These are just things that you can implement to really help bolster your security. Employee onboarding is something that is done very frequently. You bring on new staff. As the seasons change, staff turns over. But one thing that is often not considered as much or isn't thought about is offboarding. When an employee leaves, we typically say, all right, fine, give me the keys to the front door and that's it. Have a good one. But consider throughout their tenure with you, everything that they've been given access to with regards to it, like a digital footprint. Are you ensuring that every account they've accessed is reset or disabled or made inactive, or any passwords they've had? Are those still valid? Are those still active? Not to say that every employee is malicious, but all it takes is one forgotten account, one forgotten password, and suddenly your data is leaked or your account is shut down. They turn off the account, they disrupt your business. So as you go through the onboarding process, maybe make a note of all the items that you should consider when an employee leaves. Taking your onboarding checklist and working in reverse is typically a great starting point, but people often forget that after the onboarding, there's usually additional things that are either given or granted access to, and those usually get forgotten. So just kind of do some brainstorming on what items you might miss, what you haven't considered. Policies and procedures surrounding substantial change or financial transactions. Whenever you are receiving notice of a significant change or a significant transaction, you should establish beforehand a proper procedure that needs to be followed to conduct business in this regard. Your large transactions coming through from an email should be validated either face-to-face or over the phone. Just have a second way to validate that these are legitimate. Earlier, we talked about someone pretending to be your vendor and then sending you a different routing number or a wire transfer number. I would say if you get that email, pick up the phone and call your vendor and say, was this genuinely you? But importantly, call back the vendor on a verified number, meaning something in your contacts on their website. Too many people get that email, and then in the footer of the email is that phone number that is, again, in this same malicious email. So they pick it up and they're calling this malicious person and they say, yeah, it's me, it's fine, go ahead and do that. So just consider that every transaction that you do that has significant impact um, or otherwise, you should have a written policy procedure defined beforehand for how you're going to handle those things. There are some common sense policies that to most people would seem common, but it's not always the case. Some people just haven't been given the knowledge yet. Some people just haven't been made aware. And it seems like such a fundamental basic, but it's not to everyone. So just make sure that you're establishing those things with your employees, with your business partners. Um, don't give out passwords over the phone. Don't give out pins over the phone, things like that. Um, so just take a moment to kind of reflect on the things that you might consider common and maybe bounce those off of other employees, partners, ask, would they consider that common? Would they handle that differently? And if so, come to a mutual agreement on what makes the most sense for you. AI, I've been talking about it this entire time. It's everywhere. It's everything now. It's so popular. But very few people take time to slow down and consider, is it being used? Is it being used responsibly? What data is being shared with it? The problem that a lot of people don't understand is that free AI tools frequently consume the data that it's given and then can basically regurgitate that later on, not directly, but indirectly. So if you're taking a customer list, uploading it to ChatGPT or any of the other big prominent AI tools right now, you could just be giving that information away. And more importantly, you could not know that you're giving that information away. Do you have a policy written out with your staff on what they're allowed to do? If so, um, are they allowed to use the free tools, or are you forcing them to use a paid tool? Um, AI is everywhere now, so just consider that uh, it may be your best friend, it may be your worst enemy. Just have a policy established with your staff on what responsible use of AI looks like and what irresponsible use of AI looks like that could lead to a bad situation for the company. Any questions on anything we've discussed? How they can implement any of these?
Thomas, if you're using AI in the workplace, do you recommend that you use a paid version versus a free version?
Yeah. So typically, and I say typically because there are always exceptions to this, but typically paid versions of AI often offer you the comfort and the confirmation that information you submit to it will not be used for training, it's called. So basically your data gets consumed and then can be regurgitated further down the road. Basically, it's a confirmation that the information you submit is private to you. In a lot of company and business offerings, that is true and that is the case, but there are always exceptions. So
when you use the free one, then that is used potentially for training.
exactly. Yep.
Okay.
It's free for a reason, right?
Nice.
They're trying to gain something from it, and by you using it with it being free, that's how they make that exchange.
Thank you.
Yeah. If nothing else, I will keep going. Cybersecurity, it extends beyond the cyberspace, beyond computers, electronic devices. It's about culture. It's about building a security first, a secure culture where people understand the repercussions of phishing, of clicking the link, of giving away credentials they shouldn't have. Security incidents, when they happen, and I say when because it's inevitable. It's going to happen, whether it be big, small, somewhere in between. It's not about blame, because the second you start blaming someone for an incident, you've lost their trust. We always encourage transparency because we want people to be forthcoming when something goes wrong, because the most important thing is the time since something went wrong. That time period gives us as defenders, it gives us time to respond and make sure that what could be a very small security incident doesn't turn into something much bigger. Just because your email got compromised doesn't mean that you're going to have to pay out a $200,000 ransom just yet. But if you let it dwell for months and months, there's a chance that it could turn into that. So encourage transparency, encourage your employees to be forthcoming whenever there's an issue, um, whenever they see something that's just out of the ordinary or odd, encourage them to bring it forward to someone that would know how to deal with that. And if you're not that person, if you don't have that skill set, which is totally fine because you're so busy conducting business, right? If you don't have that skill set, that knowledge, fine, find someone that does, right? Find someone who is maybe IT savvy that you can at least ask them a question about if something went wrong. And they might say yes, they might say no, but have a resource available. Find an IT resource or a company that can provide that service to you, just so that when you're overwhelmed or you just don't have the answer, that they're there ready to help you. Some resources for you. I will throw these links here in the chat there in case you're interested. Get CyberSafe. That's a resource from Government of Canada, basically just giving you some very basic fundamental digital literacy. So things like what's two-factor authentication and how you can benefit from it. Lots of just very good basics and some understanding to help you get going in the right direction. The next one there, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, also a Government of Canada program. Lots of resources there for you as business owners. And importantly, they have a phone number that you can call that if there's ever a cyber incident, they're obviously not going to hold your hand all the way through, but they can at least give you the resources for how you can proceed. It's just kind of a sound voice of reason that can help you on your path to recovery or figuring out what the next steps are. This one is from IBC, Insurance Bureau of Canada. Cyber Savvy is essentially get cyber safe from above, but from a insurance industry perspective. So they have some basic digital literacy on cybersecurity, but also some points that might help you get moving in the right direction with getting cyber coverage or the bare minimum of things that you would need to do to be more compliant. So great resources. Check them out if you get a moment. So your mission, here's an action plan. I know I throw so much information out and you feel overwhelmed and you'll leave here and nothing will ever come of it. So I'm going to give you a few things to do just very quickly. Number one, if you have an IT resource, go out, engage them. It doesn't have to be daily, weekly, but just go out and engage with them and say, listen, I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. Look at what we have right now, see where we need to go. If you don't have a resource, go find one. There are so many, just go on Google, get AI to do a search for you, lots of options. Item number two is if you haven't enabled it right now, go enable two-factor authentication on your email. Almost every major email provider out there gives you the option to do it, and there are lots of instructions out there on how to do it. The last one here is, so there's a list of everything we talked about today. Pick two of those and just explore them. Go and see if any two of those are already implemented, or if not, how you could do them. So just some very quick, easy things for you to do. I'm not saying go out and reinvent your cybersecurity posture today, but just pick two items, start there, and you will see that naturally over time, other things will fall into place and they will naturally kind of follow suit. Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks so much, Thomas. course, I've had the benefit of being on all of these webinars, and each one has been fantastic for me, but I thought the last one was one of the best, but I think this one was one of the best. If anybody has any questions, we have time, so please, I encourage you to ask while we have Thomas on this last webinar.
I have a question, Lynn, if that's all right. It's Lori Burke.
Yes, of course.
Thomas, I know you run a business, but I'm just wondering, like, on average, what is the cost of an organization to engage someone like yourself or another business to do a cybersecurity plan? We've been looking at it, but I think it's a little, it's not only that it's daunting, it's time consuming, and I think that's where we're falling down a bit. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Yeah. Great question. And many people are hesitant to proceed just because either the time commitment, the cost. A lot of companies out there, IT providers, want to engage on a contractual basis. So they'll ask you to sign for a year contract, and it can include certain provisions like getting you up to speed on some things that you might be out of line on. So that might be a better way to engage with them, so that slowly over time you're basically paying for this contract that gets you more and more in line with recommendations. There are other engagements where it's purely hourly. It's hard to give a number just because organization size varies, and it's really based on organization size. If it's a two-person company, we could be talking sub $1,000 to get you compliant in a couple of the aspects that we spoke about today: two-factor authentication, business email compromise, technical standards, implementation, things like that. But it really depends on where you're at now, where you need to go, and the size of your company. So hard to give a estimate without knowing the exact size we're dealing with. But yeah, sub 1,000 to multi 10,000, depending on the scale and the scope.
Lori, I'm happy to connect you and Thomas by email post webinar if that works for you.
That'd be great. Thanks,
Yeah,
Lynn.
absolutely. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
It's Diane here.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. This is probably a stupid question, but I guess there's no such thing as a
Yes,
No
stupid
such
question.
thing.
Yeah. I just think about we use OneDrive here.
Yes.
Can you protect or back up OneDrive? Like if someone got into our OneDrive and we have a lot of things stored there, everything is there.
Yeah.
So is it possible? Is that even possible? I don't know.
Absolutely. Yep.
To protect
So
your OneDrive?
yeah, absolutely. With OneDrive, there's a couple options. And this is specific to OneDrive, but this kind of applies to a lot of the cloud file providers. So like Google Drive, anything like that. Typically within the service, there's kind of a built-in backup. So with the business version of OneDrive, you by default get 90 days of retention. So if something goes wrong, you can roll back to a version of a file within the past 90 days. So if you delete something, you can also restore from that past 90 days. That being said, things can still go very wrong within OneDrive. Maybe if Microsoft is having a bad day, you can't get into OneDrive. So on top of that, one thing that we actually offer to our customers is a OneDrive backup. So it's a service where every day at 5 a.m., we download all of your content, and it's kept locally here in Nova Scotia, so that if something really were to go wrong, we have a copy of your data and we can get it back to you very quickly. So yes, definitely possible. There's lots of services out there that do it for a pretty minimal fee. So definitely worth exploring.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had a question. I'm talking about passwords and reusing passwords and things like that. So many things now, like especially Google, you can use your Google login. Is that something we should be staying away from too?
No, those are actually kind of a good idea to use, so long as your Google account itself is secured. If your Google account is protected by two-factor authentication or other additional security measures, then it's actually kind of a good idea to do, because then you don't have another password lingering around It's not another way to get compromised. Someone needs to actually have your Google account to get in. So it's commonly referred to as single sign-on or social sign-on, and it's something I encourage so that people just don't have that extra password to remember. So yeah, definitely worth looking at.
That's great because that's definitely used a lot.
Yes, yeah, very popular.
Yeah.
Good question. Thanks, Colin. Well, thanks everyone very much for joining us on our last webinar. And thank you again to Tourism Nova Scotia for supporting this series. This is being or has been recorded and it will be up this afternoon if you want to refer back to it. And thanks again, Thomas, very much. We have enjoyed the last 4 webinars and we look forward to offering something in the future. And if anybody has any suggestions on topics or themes, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you. And if you haven't already signed up for crisis management, we have that tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock. So reach out, happy to register you. And thanks again. Enjoy the rest of your snowy afternoon.